Good day, everyone. Today's video is on someone who was only on for Season 1, but her impact on the crew was forever remembered. Of course, I'm talking about Natasha, or Tasha Yar, and these are 10 interesting facts about her. Her story is a sad one, so let's get into it. Number 1. Tasha was born in 2337 on the failed Federation colony world of Turkana 4. Her sister, Shara, was born 5 years later. Both of their parents were killed shortly after Shara's birth, after which they were looked after for a few months by some people who later disappeared, leaving Tasha to care for herself and her sister. Number 2. Tasha had to avoid rape gangs and terrible violence just to scavenge for the bare necessities of life, such as food. One of the few bright spots in her life was finding a cat, which she attempted to protect while being chased by a rape gang. Narcotic use was also commonplace. Tasha apparently resorted to drugs as an escape at some point, but later remembered that they were more harm to her than good. Tasha managed to find a way off Turkana 4 in 2352 by the age of 15. Number 3. Tasha began to attend Starfleet Academy soon after her escape and credited Starfleet for saving her from her previous life. She joined security because of the lawlessness environment in which she grew up in. In 2363, while conducting a rescue mission, Yar rescued a colonist after traversing a minefield. Captain Jean-Luc Picard's ship at the time was also present. Picard was so impressed with her bravery that he recruited Yar for duty on the Enterprise D, as Yar's current commanding officer owed him a favor. Number 4. Yar piloted Picard to the Enterprise D in the shuttlecraft Galileo for his first visit to the ship. She set out to Farpoint Station from Earth Station McKinley with most of the crew. When the Enterprise was transported beyond the known universe by the Traveler to a place where matter and thought were not distinct, Yar hallucinated that she had returned to Turkana 4 and was being chased by the rape gangs. Number 5. Because of the matriarchic nature of the society on Angel 1, Yar took informal command of the away team while Commander William T. Riker negotiated for the release of the survivors from the freighter Odin. When Riker put on one of the sexualized outfits worn by men on the planet, she and Deanna had a good laugh at the first officer's expense. Number 6. Yar was an expert in Aikido, a form of martial arts, and regularly used several holodeck training programs. She was also a Precy Squares player. At the time of her death, Yar was scheduled to participate in a martial arts competition with Science Officer Swenson and Lieutenant Minnerly, which was to take place 3 days later. She was favored in the ship's pool. Number 7. Yar was at least slightly attracted to Data and had sex with him while under the influence of polywater intoxication. She later told him that the incident never happened. Data still felt a special connection to Tasha and later mentioned that he and Tasha were intimate. He kept a holographic image of Tasha to remember her. When Data's rights as a sentient being were called into question, his romantic encounter with Tasha was a strong influence for Judge Philippia Vluvar to rule that Data was in fact a sentient life form, as Data admitted that she was special to him even when he had no emotions to influence his thoughts on personal relationships. Number 8. Tasha rarely spoke of her family because of the chaotic nature of her childhood, though both her sister Shara and her alternate timeline half-Romulan daughter Sella visited the Enterprise. Tasha barely remembered her father and called herself an orphan like Worf. During her recorded funeral speech on the holodeck in 2364, she addressed Jean-Luc Picard and told him that he would be the person in the universe she would love to call a father figure. Number 9. Tasha was often uncomfortable in expressing her femininity, and for that reason sometimes sought the help of Deanna Troi. Yar was also very good friends with Worf, who, as a Klingon warrior, greatly admired her physical combat skills. Together, they took part in a Parisi Squares tournament against Starbase 74 maintenance crew in 2364. Number 10. Tasha was killed in late 2364 on the planet Vagra 2. She was part of an away team sent to rescue Deanna Troi and Ben Prento, who had crashed there aboard a shuttle. Their rescue was impeded by a life form known as Armus. When Yar tried to walk around Armus to get to the shuttle crew, Armus attacked and killed her without warning, simply as a display of his power. Dr. Crusher tried to revive her, but she was too badly injured, as the life had been drained from her. The officially recorded cause of death was heavy synaptic damage. A service was held for Tasha in the holodeck following the rescue of the crew from the surface, where a holographic message from Tasha was played. Tasha always believed her death would happen quickly and while on duty, and that was the way she wanted it. It's a shame that Tasha only lasted one season, as her character had so much potential. We do see a few episodes which call back to Tasha, which is pretty cool. Anyways, did you like Tasha? And what did you like about her? Let me know in the comments. As always, consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it does help out the channel a lot. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today's video is on 10 interesting facts about Katherine Pulaski. She was on Star Trek The Next Generation for the second season and replaced Dr. Beverly Crusher as she had went on to Starfleet on Earth. So, grab a snack and let's get into it. Number 1. Pulaski was part of a rescue team responding to a Tholian attack on a Federation starbase in 2353. There was only one survivor, Kyle Riker, and it was at this time that the two had met. Number 2. Prior to her posting to the Enterprise, Pulaski served as Chief Medical Officer on the USS Repulse under the command of Captain Taggart. Taggart was fond of Pulaski and said he would have given her a personal shuttlecraft if she had agreed to remain on board the Repulse. Number 3. Like her predecessor 80 years before her, Dr. Leonard McCoy, Dr. Pulaski had a transporter phobia. She rarely used a transporter while posted to the vessel, preferring to use shuttlecraft whenever possible. Number 4. Early in her career, Pulaski authored a groundbreaking research paper called The Linear Modules of Viral Propagation. It was still the standard on the subject many years later. She also performed 2 successful operations involving ocular implants. She offered the procedure to Lieutenant Geordi La Forge in 2365, although he turned down the opportunity. Dr. Pulaski pioneered a technique used to selectively wipe memory engrams from a humanoid species, one that Dr. Beverly Crusher was familiar with. Number 5. By 2365, when she transferred to the Enterprise, Pulaski carried the rank of commander. Unlike Dr. Crusher, however, she was not considered a bridge officer. Number 6. Pulaski joined Lieutenant Commander Data and Lieutenant La Forge on a holodeck simulation of a Sherlock Holmes mystery. La Forge had unwittingly given the simulated Professor James Moriarty, Holmes's nemesis, sentience by giving the computer the directive to create an adversary which could defeat Data, not Holmes. Moriarty took control of the program and abducted Pulaski. She was held captive but unharmed until Captain Picard was able to convince Moriarty to release control of the holodeck. Number 7. Pulaski had an expertise in heart surgery, and when Picard initially tried to refuse her medical order to proceed to Starbase 515 for a cardiac replacement surgery, she said that her and her staff would be able to perform the surgery on Enterprise. He refused because of his pride, saying it would be inappropriate for Pulaski to do so. Picard eventually did accompany Wesley Crusher to Starbase. Wesley was to undergo the testing, to see if he can continue in Starfleet Academy studies aboard the Enterprise. But when complications developed that put his life in jeopardy, the surgeons, who were unqualified to perform risky techniques that might save Picard's life, called for Katherine Pulaski, who was so qualified. When Picard awoke to see Pulaski in the OR, he was annoyed that she was there. When she says she was saving his life, he says that this was a routine operation, but Pulaski says Picard is not a commonplace man, and despite the fact that the entire crew now knows of what happened, Pulaski tells Picard that he's still invincible in their eyes. Number 8. Pulaski believed that traditional remedies were just as valuable as technological ones, perhaps even more so. When the Enterprise was affected by the Oconian software transmission, she instructed her staff to use splints and other primitive treatments while most of the ship's systems were down. She also had her own blend of chicken soup, called PCS, or Pulaski's Chicken Soup, which she prescribed to those with ailments such as the flu. Number 9. Pulaski entered a romantic relationship with Kyle Riker, William Riker's father, in 2353. She later recalled that she would have married him in a cold minute, but quickly realized that his priorities were elsewhere and that she would not have a stable place in his life. She did not hold this fact against him, though, and they remained friends. Pulaski never mentioned this to his son Will Riker until Kyle came aboard the Enterprise in 2365 to brief Will on his promotion to captain of the USS Ares, a position Will later turned down. After she and Kyle parted ways, Pulaski had been married and divorced 3 times. Like with Kyle, she remained good friends with all 3 men. Number 10. Because of her discomfort with technology, Pulaski was not very kind towards Lieutenant Commander Data when she first boarded the ship. She saw him in no more than a machine, pronouncing his name as Data rather than Data, and did not understand that, as Data pointed out, one is my name, the other is not. She was also confused when Counselor Troi decided to have Data with her during the delivery of her son, believing that the touch of a human hand was better than that of an artificial life form. She was also condescending towards Data, and often spoke to him through other crew members. She believed that Data's methodological way of looking at situations meant that he could never solve a traditional Sherlock Holmes mystery, which led to the creation of the program which brought the sentient Professor Moriarty. Later during the year, however, she began to value Data and looked upon him as an equal and as a sentient individual. The major turning point was during the crisis surrounding the Darwin Station children. Data stayed to support Pulaski for a long time after she became infected, something for which she was very grateful. There was not much on Katherine Pulaski, but she did have a colorful history aboard the Enterprise for that one year. Did you remember her? What did you think of Dr. Pulaski? Let me know in the comments. And consider subscribing to the channel and becoming a member of the channel. Thank you for watching. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at 10 interesting facts on Wesley Crusher. Feel free to drop a comment and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Now, let's get into it. Number 1. Wesley Howard Crusher was born in the year 2348 to Beverly and Jack Crusher. Number 2. Beverly gave their son her own maiden name for his middle name, and Wes's first name had been the middle name of his paternal great-grandfather. Number 3. When Wesley was 5 years old, his father Jack Crusher was killed during an away mission while serving on board the USS Stargazer under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Picard was forced to choose between saving another team member or Crusher, his personal friend, and Crusher ended up losing his life. Number 4. 10 years later, 15-year-old Wesley found himself living aboard the starship USS Enterprise D when his mother, Dr. Beverly Crusher, became Captain Picard's chief medical officer aboard the ship. Number 5. Wesley often was a challenge and a sore sight in the captain's eyes, even if he was the son of a good friend, because the captain's disdain for children. Although Wesley's knowledge of engineering as well as top grades on scientific examinations continuously impressed Picard, and these same characteristics were in part the cause of Wesley's suffering from loneliness early on, as his peers were intimidated by his bright mind. He also showed a tendency to take his duties almost too seriously. Number 6. In 2364, Wesley befriended the Traveler aboard the Enterprise D to assist the warp drive efficiency upgrade experiments. When the ship was transported millions of light years to the M33 galaxy, Wesley assisted the Traveler in returning the ship to their own galaxy. Captain Picard, who was very impressed with Wesley's contributions during the mission, granted him the Field Commission of Acting Ensign for performing outstanding in the best Starfleet traditions on Stardate 41263.4. Number 7. Late in 2364, Wesley took the Starfleet Academy entrance exam, but did not pass. However, his spirits were lifted when Picard told him that he too had failed the exam the first time. Number 8. Wesley successfully completed his written exams for Starfleet Academy in 2366, but did not complete his oral exams that year when he failed to board the USS Bradbury for the journey to Earth. When reviewing his service record, Captain Picard felt that Wesley's service made him an acting ensign in name only, and promoted him to full ensign, with all responsibilities and privileges, including the right to wear a Starfleet uniform. Wesley served as ensign aboard the Enterprise for the next year before leaving to become a cadet. Number 9. At the Academy, Wesley had become a member of Elite Nova Squadron. In his graduation in 2368 was troubled, however, when a deadly accident with his Nova Squadron comrades participated in a cover-up. Picard eventually found out and confronted Wesley about it. He was angered but also disappointed in him, telling him that regardless of his loyalty he felt towards Lucaro and his other comrades, his number one duty as a Starfleet officer was to always tell the truth. Picard threatened to come forward with this evidence unless Wesley did. Hesitantly, Wesley came forward with the truth and barely escaped expulsion. All of Wesley's grades and work for that academic year were voided as punishment, and he was required to repeat the courses. Number 10. In 2370, Cadet Crusher resigned from Starfleet Academy after the Traveler, posing as a villager on Dorvan 5, guided him through a vision of his deceased father, who told him that his destiny lay somewhere other than Starfleet, and that he should not follow in his footsteps. Much to his mother's and Picard's disappointment, yet with their support, Wesley heeded the advice at which the Traveler revealed his true identity and promised to mentor the young man on his new journey. I hope you liked this video on Wesley Crusher. If you liked the video, consider subscribing to the channel. And have an awesome day. Good day, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is on 10 interesting facts about Reginald Barclay from Star Trek, TNG, and Voyager. This character was really interesting and he had some phobias. However, he usually came through by the end of an episode. So, let's get into it. Number 1. During Barclay's attendance at Starfleet Academy, his reclusive tendencies escaped the attentions of neither his classmates nor his service record. Despite this, Barclay graduated and received a commendation by serving competently in Starfleet for many years. During his service aboard the USS Shovok, he earned satisfactory ratings, and when he transferred to the Enterprise D, the Shovok commanding officer, Captain Gleason, spoke highly of Barclay to his new ship's crew. Number 2. Upon his transfer to the Enterprise D in 2366, Barclay held the rank of Lieutenant Junior grade. Due to his nervousness and lack of confidence, many members of the Enterprise crew initially referred to him as Lieutenant Broccoli, a play on the name Barclay, coined by Wesley Crusher. He was initially disliked by members of the crew, not only due to the fact he seemed constantly nervous and on edge, but also because he was routinely late for duty and often wound up on report for seemingly not performing to the best of his ability. As a result, he was the first member of the Enterprise crew to be given an unsatisfactory rating in his evaluation. Riker and La Forge attempted to get him transferred off the ship, not believing he was competent enough to serve on the Federation flagship, with Riker even suggesting that Captain Gleason had exaggerated his assessment of Barclay to hasten the departure of the troublesome officer. Captain Picard, however, refused to simply transfer him away from the ship, and it was because of Picard's support and Geordi La Forge's encouragement, at Picard's behest, that Barclay's confidence began to increase. Number 3. As time passed, Barclay slowly grew in confidence and became one of La Forge's best engineers. Following an encounter with an alien probe in 2367, Barclay's IQ rose somewhere between 1200 and 1450 as a result of a neurological enhancement he received from the probe. During the time he possessed this enhanced intellect, Barclay was more confident, outgoing, and sure of himself, even arguing grand unified theories with a holographic representation of Albert Einstein on the holodeck. Barclay was able to use the holodeck to integrate his mind into the ship's computer, effectively taking complete control. Unknown to Barclay, the Cytherans, the creators of the probe, set this in motion so that he would bring the Enterprise D to them, as this was their species' preferred method of investigating new races. All attempts to disconnect or dissuade him were unsuccessful, and he created a subspace distortion that brought the Enterprise D to the Silithrians. After this encounter, Barclay was returned to his previous self, but he did retain a bit of confidence and intelligence that the experience gave him. Number 4. Later that year, Barclay inadvertently released the holographic representation of Professor James Moriarty from his confines in the computer memory core of the Enterprise D, while conducting a diagnosis of the failure of the holodeck matrix diodes, which turned out to be caused by Moriarty himself. Upon activation, Moriarty briefly explained his history to Barclay, and, after realizing he's been there for 4 years has passed, deduced that Captain Picard had merely promised to research a way for him to live in the real world in order to get him to release the hostage he had taken at the time. Barclay defended Picard, saying the captain would never go back on his word, and promised to report the incident to his superiors, which he did. Number 5. In 2375, Lieutenant Commander Worf and Chief O'Brien specifically mentioned that nobody could forget Barclay when remembering old friends on the Enterprise. O'Brien and Worf remembered him most for his extravagant Three Musketeers program they often invited the crew to join him in. Number 6. Sometime prior to 2371, Barclay transferred to Jupiter Station and worked as part of the original holo engineering team in Dr. Louis Zimmerman's holographic laboratory, assigned to test the emergency medical hologram's interpersonal skills. Sometime between 2371 and 2376, Barclay was promoted from lieutenant junior grade to lieutenant. Number 7. Barclay was assigned to the new USS Enterprise E before the Battle of Sector 001 in 2373. He traveled into the past with the rest of the ship's crew to the day before Earth's first contact with the Vulcans and met the noted inventor Dr. Zephram Cochrane. Barclay was thrilled at the opportunity to shake Cochrane's hand, so much so, in fact, that Lieutenant Commander Geordi La Forge found himself having to remind Barclay to calm down and continue his work, helping Cochrane repair the Phoenix. Barclay also obtained La Forge's approval and input on a makeshift component that Barclay and other engineers from the Enterprise E intended to use to replace the Phoenix's warp plasma conduit. Number 8. In 2374, Barclay was transferred to the Pathfinder project at Starfleet's Communications Research Center endeavoring to return the starship USS Voyager to the Alpha Quadrant from the distant Delta Quadrant. As a result, Barclay relocated to Earth and kept an apartment in San Francisco. Barclay created a holographic recreation of the vessel and its crew to enable him to experiment with different solutions. Number 9. Later that year, Barclay, with the assistance of the USS Voyager EMH known as the Doctor, devised the idea of using the Midas array to direct a tachyon beam towards an approaching Class B inerrant pulsar, thus generating an artificial micro-wormhole. This wormhole could then be directed towards Voyager's likely locations and used to communicate with the ship. Unfortunately, Commander Pete Harkins turned down his idea as impractical. However, Barclay was unable to contain his enthusiasm during an inspection of the research facility by Admiral Paris. This prompted Harkins to send Barclay home for the rest of the day. Barclay disobeyed and instead returned to his simulation to refine his ideas. When Harkins later discovered him in the simulation, Barclay was suspended pending a psychological evaluation, as the commander believed Barclay had suffered a relapse of his holo addiction. Barclay was unable to accept this and appealed to Admiral Paris, then broke into the communications center. He attempted to go forward with his plan but was discovered. To prevent himself from being interrupted, Barclay activated the holographic recreation of Voyager, using the holographic crew to protect and assist him. Just as Harkins used a simulated warp core breach to end the program, Captain Catherine Janeway hailed the communications center from the Delta Quadrant, having received Barclay's message. With this, a bit brief, two-way communications with the ship's logs, research data, and personal message for Tom Paris from his father, and instructions in order to improve the communication systems of Voyager were able to be transmitted, and Barclay's ideas were vindicated. The crew of Voyager later toasted their unmet hero who established the link, honoring Barclay as an honorary member of the crew. Number 10. In 2378, Barclay was on duty at the communications center when long-range sensors detected a Borg transwarp conduit opening just outside the Sol system. He quickly reported this information to several visiting admirals. When a Borg sphere emerged from the transwarp conduit and exploded to reveal Voyager, Barclay was one of the first to welcome the starship's crew home. I really like this character, and even more so on Star Trek Voyager. If it wasn't for him, Voyager would not have gotten home. At least not in my opinion. He started his character with no self-esteem and no self-confidence, and ended up being a hero. So what did you think of Barclay? Did you like him on TNG or Voyager? Let me know in the comments. And consider subscribing to the channel and perhaps even becoming a member of the channel. Take care and have a great day. Good day everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is on 10 interesting facts about Miles O'Brien from Star Trek TNG. I'll do a part 2 for him for being on Deep Space Nine. So now, let's get into it. Number 1. Miles O'Brien was born in Ireland, Earth, in September 28. O'Brien claimed he could trace his ancestry back to the 11th century Irish king Brian Boru, whom he occasionally played in the Holosuite program. Another notable O'Brien ancestor was Sean Aloysius O'Brien. Number 2. O'Brien was proud of the fact that he was raised on real food, as his mother believed that replicated food was less nutritious. When preparing meals for her family, his mother would handle and cook meat. O'Brien had 2 brothers. His mother passed away in 2368, and his father Michael remarried a year later, though Miles never met his new stepmother. His relationship with his father had been a somewhat rocky one during Miles' adolescence. Michael had pushed Miles to pursue his music career, making him practice the cello at least once a day, and was somewhat upset by his son's enlistment in Starfleet. When Miles was 17 years old, his father sent a recording of his work to the Albion Music Academy. O'Brien declined the offer of admission to the Music Academy and enrolled in Starfleet, against his father's wishes. The two later reconciled their differences, and O'Brien's father was eventually extremely proud of his son and his accomplishments. Number 3. As a child, O'Brien had a morbid fear of spiders. Following a mission on Zera 4, where O'Brien was forced to make a critical repair in a Jeffries tube containing Tellurian hook spiders, he found that his fear had lessened, and he later kept a Leucosia tarantula named Christina as a pet aboard the Enterprise D. Number 4. In 2345, at the age of 17, O'Brien joined Starfleet as an enlisted crewman, where he attended engineering school. As of stardate 49648, O'Brien had served aboard a half a dozen starships, participated in 235 separate combat engagements, and been decorated by Starfleet on 15 occasions. Because of his impressive military record, O'Brien was recognized by Starfleet Formal Inquiry as an expert in starship combat. O'Brien's career was so well respected that Captain Keogh of the USS Odyssey considered the chief's experiences an asset before launching a rescue mission for Commander Benjamin Sisko in the Gamma Quadrant in 2370. Number 5. One of his first assignments was aboard the USS Rutledge under the command of Benjamin Maxwell, where he served as junior tactical officer during the Cardassian War. A year later, O'Brien was present at the aftermath of Setlik III massacre, where his technical skill was useful in repairing a field transporter, allowing him and 13 other Starfleet personnel to escape a Cardassian patrol. This earned him a promotion to primary tactical officer. O'Brien also served as part of the squad to aid in the survivor of the massacre, as Cardassians were still patrolling the settlement. He helped a group of women and children, but was ambushed by 2 Cardassians. He was able to incapacitate one of them, but in fighting with the other one, he accidentally killed his assailant with a phaser passed to him, which was set to maximum. Until then, O'Brien had never killed anything or anyone. He even worried about swatting mosquitoes as a child, and the incident left him with a deep-seated resentment towards Cardassians, bordering on outright racism on occasion. He often referred to them as Cardies. Many years later, he remarked to Glenn Darrow that it was not Cardassians that he hated, but rather the person he became because of them. Number 6. O'Brien transferred to the USS Enterprise D in 2364 with the rank of Chief Petty Officer under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. During the Farpoint mission, he was assigned as Relief Flight Control Officer. He also stood duty in the Security Department, but was most often seen working as Transporter Chief, where he was involved in, among other events, the rescue of Captain Picard from the Borg in 2367. Number 7. In 2367, Miles was forced to confront his former commanding officer when Captain Maxwell went rogue, launching attacks on Cardassian outposts and ships in spite of a peace treaty between Federation and Cardassia. O'Brien's knowledge of transporter systems allowed him to beam aboard Maxwell's ship, the USS Phoenix, while her shields were up, giving him a chance to reason with Maxwell, ultimately preventing further bloodshed. He married Keiko aboard the Enterprise on October 24, 2367, and the couple had their first child, Molly, the following year. Number 8. During the Klingon Civil War, O'Brien also made use of his training as a tactical officer following Lieutenant Worf's resignation from Starfleet. As a result, he was heavily involved in the deployment and maintenance of the tachyon detection grid that ultimately decided the conflict. Number 9. In 2368, a quantum filament caused major damage to the Enterprise. Unable to communicate with the rest of the crew, O'Brien, together with Lieutenant Commander Deanna Troi, Ensign Rolaren, and Ensign Mandel, were trapped on the bridge, while his heavily pregnant wife Keiko was stuck in 10 forward. The quantum resonance of the filament caused a polarity shift in the ship's antimatter containment fields, leading to a progressive degeneration in the fields threatening the ship. Rowe suggested a saucer separation to save the primary hull, while sacrificing the star drive section. O'Brien strongly opposed this plan and stated that it'd be a pretty cold-blooded thing to do. Eventually, thanks to his prowess in keeping the containment field stable long enough, Troi rejected Ro's proposal, and the antimatter containment was fully restored by Commander Riker and Lieutenant Commander Data shortly before Keiko delivered her baby in 10 Forward. Number 10. Later that year, O'Brien, along with Troi and Data, was taken over by an alien life form which forced them to take hostages to use as a bargaining chip in negotiating with Picard. Among the prisoners were Molly and Keiko O'Brien. Eventually, the life form left when it was discovered that the moon was actually a penal colony, and that was an attempt for the life form to escape. O'Brien had a very colorful Starfleet history and has been through a lot with the Cardassian Wars. Part 2 of Miles will be about his tenure on Deep Space Nine, so consider subscribing to the channel to get that video when it comes out. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today we'll be doing 10 interesting facts about Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation. We'll do another one for him for Deep Space Nine in a bit. So this one will be part 1 on Worf. So grab a snack and let's get into it. Number 1. Worf was born in 2340 on the Klingon homeworld of Kronos as the son of Mogh, patriarch of one of the Klingon Empire's greatest houses. Number 2. When Worf was 5 years old, his father took him and his mother to live on the Khitomer, a colony along with Worf's Gugomok, Kahlest. There, Mogh took Worf on a ritual hunt along with a garrison warrior, Lakar. Worf had not yet reached the age of inclusion and was barely able to hold a bat'leth. During the hunt, Worf was mauled by a beast, leaving behind a scar and a memory he kept throughout his life. At some point when Worf was a child, he had a pet targ. Number 3. In 2346, the Klingon Empire and the Romulan Star Empire were officially allied, but a conspiracy between the Romulans and the House of Duras left the Klingon Empire open to betrayal. Romulan forces attacked the Khitomer colony, killing nearly all the 4,000 Klingon colonists, including Worf's parents. Number 4. The colony's distress call was answered by the Federation starship USS Intrepid. An Intrepid Chief Petty Officer, Sergei Ryzhenko, found Worf buried in the rubble, with Kahlest being the only other survivor found. After the Klingon Empire stated that the young boy apparently had no living relatives, Sergei took Worf to his homestead on the farming colony of Galt. He and his wife Helena raised the Klingon child alongside their own son Nikolai. The two boys regarded each other as siblings. Number 5. As the sole Klingon in a small farm culture, Worf had some difficulty adapting to his new circumstances, though years later Helena described her son as bright and highly spirited as a boy. Soon after his arrival on Galt, the 7-year-old bloodied the nose of 5 teenage boys, whom Worf deemed disrespectful. He refused to partake in human food, preferring the Klingon cuisine he'd been raised on. Helena would learn how to make rokeg blood pie for Worf, which he loved and greatly appreciated. In 2353, at the 13 years of age, Worf led his school soccer team to the championships, where, in an attempt to score, he collided with another player, Mikkel, when they both went to head the ball. The impact of the Klingon ridges against the human skull snapped Mikkel's neck, and the boy died the next day. This lesson in human frailties made a huge impact on Worf's Nset character. His self-control, interpreted by some as part of his Klingon heritage, was a large factor in his serious demeanor. The Ryzhenko family eventually moved to Earth, where Sergei frequently took Nikolai and Worf camping in the Ural Mountains. At night, Worf often listened rapidly to the sound of wolves howling in the distance. Number 6. At the age of 15 years old, in 2355, Worf voyaged to Kronos, where he stayed with cousins at the House of Mogh. There, he made the formal declaration of his intent to become a warrior and perform the rite of ascension. During the ceremony, Worf had presented with a well-forged knife, a gift from a Klingon who also known Mogh. Seeing the great dooms of Kronos made him feel like at home, but his skin rejected this marked human taint. Worf fasted for 3 days before undertaking the rite of Majaka. After 6 days of meditation in the volcanic cave of Nomat, the legendary Klingon warrior Kahless the Unforgettable appeared to Worf in a vision and prophesied that Worf would do something that no other Klingon had ever done before. After Worf returned to Earth, he pondered the meaning of the words and wondered what lay ahead. When he grew old enough, he joined Starfleet, the first Klingon to ever do so. For a time, Worf believed he had fulfilled his destiny this way, though later he wondered if there was not something else he had to do after he recovered the Sword of Kahless in 2372. Number 7. In 2364, Lieutenant Junior Grade Worf was assigned to a Command Division bridge officer on the USS Enterprise, NCC 1701D, under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Worf spent most of his first year on the Enterprise D as a relief officer for the Con and other bridge stations. Worf was permitted a variation of the Starfleet uniform dress code and wore a Klingon warrior sash, sometimes called a baldric by humans, over his regular duty uniform. Worf's quarters were on Deck 7 in Section 25 Baker until 2370, when he moved to Deck 2, Room 2713. Number 8. Following the death of Tasha Yar at the hands of Armis Entity, Worf became Acting Security Chief. In 2365, Worf transferred to Operations Division and officially became the Enterprise D's Tactical Officer and Security Chief. He was promoted to the rank of Full Lieutenant in 2366. After 7 years of service aboard the starship, Worf rose to the rank of Lieutenant Commander in 2371. Number 9. During these years of service, Worf's record was marred by a single reprimand, earned when he killed Duras in an honor duel after the latter killed Worf's mate Kalar. Killing Duras directly affected the ascension of a new Klingon Chancellor after the death of Kempek. Number 10. Following Worf's promotion to Lieutenant Commander in 2371, he was instrumental in a battle that ensued after the Duras sisters attacked the Enterprise. He first remembered a critical flaw that had caused their class of bird of prey to be retired, and when Data then made use of this flaw to remotely cause the vessel to cloak, Worf destroyed the bird of prey with a single torpedo hit. Unfortunately, due to damage sustained in the battle, the Enterprise star drive section was destroyed, with the separated saucer section crashing on Veridian 3, damaged beyond repair. I do hope you liked the video on Worf from the TNG era. Remember, I'll be doing a second part for Worf for the DS9 era, as there's much to say about Worf. So what do you think about Worf? Let me know in the comment section. Consider becoming a member of the channel and subscribe if you're not already. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is 10 interesting facts about Deanna Troi from Star Trek TNG. At first I was not fond of this character, but eventually I warmed up to her. So, now let's get into it. Number 1. Deanna was born on March 29, 2336, near Lake Elnar on Beta Z. She was born to Beta Z Ambassador Lwaxana Troi and human Starfleet officer Ian Andrew Troi. Deanna was actually the second of their 2 children, the first being Kestra Troi, born in 2330. However, Kestra drowned when Deanna was an infant. Stricken with grief and regret, Lwaxana removed all evidence of Kestra's existence from her own life and even repressed all memories of Kestra. She also made her husband swear to never mention Kestra again. Because of this, Deanna did not learn about her sister until 2370, when Lwaxana's memories resurfaced. Number 2. As required by Beta Z custom, Deanna was genetically bonded with a human male named Wyatt Miller at a young age. Wyatt was the son of Stephen and Victoria Miller, close friends of Deanna's parents. Due to their genetic bonding, Deanna was scheduled to marry Wyatt in adulthood. Number 3. According to her mother, Deanna had a talent for languages as a child. During her adult life, Deanna also recalled having visited the Enterprise NX-01 as a little girl, although she was not absolutely sure as she always got those museum ships mixed up. Number 4. As a child living on Beta Z, Deanna learned aspects of human culture from her human father Ian. One such aspect was a fondness for stories set during Earth's ancient West, which he often read to her. To fall asleep, she would ask him to sing the American song Down in the Valley. While this was her favorite, it was his singing that made her feel safe. As she was half human and half Beta Z, she never felt trapped between the two worlds to which she belonged, instead choosing to embrace the richness of her dual heritage. She also heard stories from her maternal grandfather, who told them telepathically. Something of a traditionalist, he rarely spoke, saying speech was for off-worlders and people who didn't know any better. Number 5. Deanna's father died in 2343 when Deanna was only 7 years old. Even so, she remembered him fondly, and when she became pregnant by an alien energy being in 2365, she named the child after her father. In grammar school, Deanna had to memorize Jonathan Archer's speech at the Federation founding ceremony. Deanna began studying psychology at the University of Beta Z sometime in 2350s. During her time there, one of her patients was Tam Alberon, a Betazoid male who had been suffering from mental instability due to his lack of Beta Z natural ability to tune out the thoughts of others. Number 6. Deanna Troi entered Starfleet Academy in 2355. She graduated in 2359, majoring in psychology. On her homeworld of Beta Z, she met William T. Riker, a Starfleet lieutenant who was stationed on the planet. The two began a relationship between 2357 and 2361, and the relationship lasted several years. After Riker was assigned to the USS Potemkin, the two planned to spend their holidays together on Risa in 2361. However, Will had to cancel his plans after he was quickly promoted to lieutenant commander, deciding to make his career his top priority. Will stopped pursuing Deanna, and the couple eventually lost contact with each other. By 2364, Troi held the rank of lieutenant commander. That year, she was assigned as ship's counselor aboard the USS Enterprise D. Number 7. Supervised by Riker without any favoritism towards her, Troi tried to pass her bridge officer's test in 2370. She attempted the engineering qualifications several times without much luck, after which Riker told her the tests were cancelled. However, he also gave her a hint which let her know that the test was really about her ability to send a crew member to his death. Troi went on to successfully pass the test. She was then promoted to the rank of commander, and began to include bridge command as part of her duty shifts. With this development, Troi acquired Starfleet status as a line officer, in addition to a previous status as a staff officer. Number 8. In 2371, Troi piloted the Enterprise D on the orders of Commander Riker during the Battle of Veridian III. The warp core breach that destroyed the ship's secondary hull knocked the primary hull out of orbit, and she was forced to pilot to a crash landing on the planet. Despite her inexperience as a pilot and having to land in rugged terrain, she succeeded in bringing the ship down, saving the crew with minimal casualties. She was the last person to pilot the Enterprise D, as the saucer section could not be salvaged. Number 9. In 2372, Troi transferred to the Sovereign-class USS Enterprise E with most of the senior staff of the Enterprise D. She continued the occasional role of bridge command as part of her duty shifts, while posted on the Enterprise E. In 2373, Troi and her crewmates disobeyed Starfleet orders by taking part in the Battle of Sector 001. The Enterprise was instrumental in the destruction of the invading Borg cube, but pursued a remaining Borg sphere back in time to 2063, subsequently destroying the Borg craft before it could prevent the historic first flight of Zefram Cochrane's Phoenix warp ship. Number 10. Will, Riker, and Deanna married in 2379, shortly before their transfer to the USS Titan. The wedding party in Alaska included Katherine Picard as best man, Dr. Crusher as bridesmaid, and Geordi La Forge, Worf, and Wesley Crusher as groomsmen. Guinan was also present. Another ceremony, a traditional Beta Z wedding, was planned on Beta Z shortly following. However, that ceremony was delayed when the Enterprise was diverted to Romulus. In 2380, Troi was on the Titan when the ship saved the USS Cerritos when it was attacked by the Packlids. I do hope you liked this video. What did you think of Deanna Troi? Let me know in the comments. And please remember to subscribe to the channel to get more videos as they come out. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today's video is on 10 interesting facts about Geordi La Forge from Star Trek The Next Generation. Geordi was a very kind soul and seemed to be the heart of the crew and, well, fixed the heart of the Enterprise, the Warp Core. So, let's get into it. Number 1. Geordi La Forge was born on February 16, 2335 in Somalia to parents Captain Sylva La Forge and noted exozoologist Commander Edward M. La Forge. Due to a birth defect, he was born blind. As an adult, he stood 170 centimeters or approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall and was right-handed. Number 2. Sometime prior to 2340, Geordi was trapped alone in a burning building. He later remembered this as one of his most frightening moments of his life. When he was 5 years old, Geordi received his first visor, which allowed him to see, although not the same way the average human does, for the first time in his life. At age 8, Geordi was brought his first pet, a Carcisian cat, and he remembered his excitement for years to come. Number 3. Young Geordi spent time with both of his parents as a child, sometimes separately. For a time, Geordi lived with his father, Edward, while Edward studied invertebrates in the Modian system. On other occasions, Geordi was away from his father, on outposts near the Romulan neutral zone with his mother Sylva. Geordi went to Zefram Cochrane High School sometime prior to 2353. Number 4. He attended Starfleet Academy from 2353 to 2357, where he excelled at engineering and idolized Zefram Cochrane. Among his reading during the Academy, La Forge read about the USS Stargazer. Number 5. La Forge graduated with a Starfleet specialty in antimatter power and dilithium regulators. His first deep space assignment was as an ensign aboard the USS Victory under Captain Zambada. In 2362, La Forge participated in the investigation of the disappearance of the Federation colony on Tarchanian 3. Number 6. La Forge later transferred to the USS Hood, where he served under Captain Robert DeSoto. On the Hood, La Forge knew William T. Riker, but only professionally. Riker knew La Forge the longest of all of his shipmates aboard the Enterprise, and the two developed a close friendship during their later years together at that assignment. At one point in his career as a young officer, La Forge was assigned to pilot Jean-Luc Picard on an inspection tour. En route to their destination, Picard made an offhand remark about the shuttle's engine efficiency not being what it should be. In response to this, La Forge stayed up all night refitting the shuttle's fusion initiators. When Picard discovered what La Forge had done the following morning, he knew immediately that he wanted La Forge with him on his next command. Number 7. In 2364, he was named Con Officer on the USS Enterprise D under Captain Jean-Luc Picard. In 2365, La Forge was promoted to full lieutenant. He transferred from the Command Division to the Operations Division and was named Chief Engineer. Over the course of the next several years, it became evident that his transfer was a wise decision. His technical and analytical abilities, versatility, and his cooperative leadership style were very well suited to the requirements of a senior engineering officer aboard a major starship. Just 1 year later, in 2366, he was promoted to lieutenant commander. Number 8. In 2371, while on an away team investigating the Amargosa Observatory with Lieutenant Commander Data, Geordi was knocked unconscious by Tolan Soran. Soran then kidnapped Geordi and escaped aboard a Klingon bird of prey. The Klingons traded him for Picard. They put a spy device in Geordi's visor and used it to obtain the shield's frequency of the Enterprise. The device was removed after the destruction of the Klingon ship, but unfortunately, the damage suffered from the Klingons caused a coolant leak which he was unable to fix. This meant a warp core breach was imminent, and also meant the inevitable destruction of the Enterprise. Number 9. After the destruction of the Enterprise D, he transferred to the new Sovereign-class USS Enterprise E in 2372. He and the Enterprise then spent a year on a shakedown cruise. Sometime between 2371 and 2373, he received ocular implants capable of even more impressive functions than his visor. This advanced technology no longer required an external apparatus to see. In 2379, Geordi took part in the Enterprise's mission to Romulus. After a fierce battle with the Scimitar, he helped his best friend Data in his task of self-sacrifice to save the Enterprise crew. As of 2399, retired Admiral Picard still considered La Forge a loyal colleague who would not hesitate to join him on a mission if asked. Number 10. La Forge had a great talent for engineering and a keen judgment for needed modifications in the field. As a junior officer, his special abilities included antimatter power, dilithium regulators, holodeck programs, and climate control computers. His intense focus enabled him to master the complexities of warp engineering and other starship systems. He could adapt to change easily and was very satisfied with life. He enjoyed the senior officer's weekly poker game, and though his artificial eyes allowed him to detect bluffing and see his opponent's cards in the ultraviolet spectrum, he never peeked until a hand was over. He also delighted in scale model building of old sailing ships, chess, swimming, skin diving, the history of his profession, and fencing. I do hope you liked this video on Geordi. I always loved his character. He was so kind to pretty much everyone, even people that may not have deserved his kindness. So let me know what you think of Geordi in the comment section. Consider subscribing to the channel and become a member of the channel. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today's 10 Interesting Facts is about Dr. Beverly Crusher from Star Trek: The Next Generation. I really liked her dynamic with each of the crew members of the Enterprise, and she made a good character for the show. So now, let's get into it. Number 1. Dr. Beverly Crusher was born as Beverly Howard in Copernicus City on Earth's moon on October 13, 2324. Her ancestry was from North America, although her distant ancestors hailed from Scotland. While Beverly was still a young child, both of her parents were killed. She was raised by her grandmother, Felicia Howard, whom Beverly referred to as Nana, and who had evidently married into a noble Howard family, themselves related to the English Dukes of Norfolk. Number 2. Both Howards were present during the terrible disaster at the Arvada 3 colony, and it was during this time that Felicia learned how to use herbs and roots for medical purposes, after regular medical supplies had been exhausted. This inspired Beverly to a career in medicine. Beverly and Felicia later moved to the Caldas colony, where Felicia became a healer until her death in 2370. Number 3. Beverly's childhood was mostly happy, though she did go through the same difficulties in making friends and relating to other children that most youngsters experience. As a 13-year-old, rebellious Beverly changed her hair color to brunette, although she recalled years later that she couldn't change it back fast enough. In her later teens, Beverly admitted she developed a smart aleck mouth, which often got her into trouble. She brought a date with a young man named Tom Norris to an abrupt end with the question, "Is that a beard or is your face dirty?" Beverly later realized that she had really hurt him, and from that point on she was more conscious about other people's feelings. Number 4. Beverly attended Starfleet Academy from 2342 to 2350. During her training, she earned her Doctor of Medicine. It's during this time she became romantically involved with Jack Crusher, after being introduced by their mutual friend Walker Keel. It took months for her to realize their attraction. The two were married in 2348 after Jack proposed to her through a gag gift, a book that was entitled How to Advance Your Career Through Marriage. Number 5. Almost a year later, the Crushers welcomed a son, Wesley Crusher, in 2348. After Beverly graduated in 2350, she interned with Dr. Dalen Quace on Delos 4 in 2352. Jack later served aboard the USS Stargazer under Picard, and the couple became good friends with the captain. Picard later admitted he had fallen in love with Beverly, but did not ever express his feelings because he felt that doing so would betray his friend. Number 6. Jack died on an away mission while serving aboard the Stargazer in 2353. Picard, having been forced to choose between saving another team member or his friend. Picard brought Jack's body home to the grieving Beverly and Wesley. He also accompanied her to see Jack's body in the morgue at Starbase 32. Beverly appreciated the gesture, despite the fact that Picard felt it would be better for her to remember him alive rather as a corpse. Beverly never fully recovered from his death. Crusher took the bridge officer's test in 2362 and was promoted to commander. Number 7. Dr. Crusher was appointed Chief Medical Officer of the USS Enterprise D in 2364 and joined the ship at Farpoint Station with Wesley, reporting on board on stardate 41154. Picard initially had reservations about her presence, but she assured him that the pass would have no effect on her duties and she had no problem serving under his command. Number 8. Crusher was offered a position as head of Starfleet Medical in 2365 and left the Enterprise during that year. She was replaced by Dr. Katherine Pulaski. While at Starfleet Medical, she worked with the notorious Lieutenant Commander Calvin Hutcherson. Crusher found it difficult to be away, however, and decided to return to the ship the following year. After his first encounter with Dr. Crusher following her return, Q commented, "Ah, Dr. Crusher, I see Starfleet has shipped you back into exile." Number 9. Crusher had to deal with various epidemics aboard the Enterprise, including a polywater intoxication in 2364. The affliction was different than that encountered at Psi 2000 by the older USS Enterprise nearly a century before, and the antigen created by Dr. McCoy was ineffective. Crusher had to develop a newer version. Crusher was the first to observe the parasites which attempted to take control of the Federation in 2364 and determined a way to remove them from the host. While visiting the Borg cube which invaded Federation space in 2367, Crusher came up with the idea of damaging the Borg ship's power nodes in order to halt the progress towards Earth. She worked with Commander Data to develop a modification to the nanites which could be introduced to the Borg in order to destroy their mechanical systems, but the changes would take several weeks. Crusher later helped Data link with Locutus of Borg, Picard's assimilated alter ego. She realized that the Borg were interdependency as was their greatest weakness, and suggested Data has a seemingly benign command to shut down the Borg. After the crisis, Crusher pioneered the surgical techniques used for removing implants from Picard. Later on that year, Dr. Crusher was the first non-Trill to study their anatomy and transplant a symbiote into a new host. Number 10. Beverly was an accomplished playwright. She formed a theater troupe aboard the Enterprise and developed several classic and original plays, sometimes to the dismay of the crew members she sought to fill the roles. Although she was not shy about her theatrical abilities, Beverly was somewhat embarrassed of her past as a dancer, not wanting to be known by the nickname the Dancing Doctor. She did study tap and jazz dance, winning at least one award at St. Louis Academy in St. Louis. It was listed as part of her service record. She was also familiar with the waltz and was capable of teaching it to others. Beverly had varied interests in cybernetics, and as an ethnobotanist, she even wrote papers on the subject. Crusher also studied martial arts from Lieutenant Worf, and knew how to use a bat'leth. Crusher was also a regular participant in the USS Enterprise D's poker games. I do hope you liked this video on Dr. Crusher. I really did like her character and enjoyed episodes that centered on her. What did you think of Dr. Crusher? Let me know in the comments. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today's video is about 10 interesting facts about Data from Star Trek The Next Generation TV series and movies. Data evolved a lot during his time during the TNG era, so there's a lot of info. So, let's get into it. Number 1. Data was constructed on the planet Omicron Theta around 2336. He was the fifth of 6 known androids designed by Dr. Noonien Soong. The previous, Lore, had been deactivated over the protests of Soong's wife Juliana. Soong claimed he built Data to perfect his design of his androids, and when Data was perfected, apply his improvements to Lore. Juliana had come to view Data as her beloved son, but always feared that he would fail as his previous brothers had, or become dangerous like Lore, and would have to be dismantled. Number 2. In his earliest existence, Data was much like a baby, struggling with motor control and sensory input. Over time, Data had learned about himself and his world, and his programming was refined by Dr. Soong, who attempted to eliminate certain undesirable behaviors. Problems included a disregard for social necessities, courtesies like please and thank you, and a lack of appreciation for clothing. Number 3. Eventually, Soong decided to feed Data with the logs and journals of the colonists, while also wiping his memory of his early existence. Unfortunately, while Data was still deactivated, a mysterious crystalline entity attacked the colony. Juliana's fears that Data would be another failure motivated her to lie to her husband when they fled, forcing him to leave Data behind inactive. Data remained alone on the planet, inactive and abandoned by the colonists, until he was discovered by a landing party from the USS Tripoli on Omicron Theta on February 2nd, 2338. Number 4. In the first few weeks after Data was reactivated, and without the early presence of Noonien and Juliana Soon, Data claimed he had no one to guide him as his neural net was developing and achieving sentience. In that process, more complex pathways replaced simpler ones. As the integration of these pathways became increasingly difficult, the probability of cascade failure increased. As a consequence, Data considered shutting himself down and beginning all over again. He eventually considered the situation a challenge and continued on. He later expressed to La Forge that, in essence, he considered suicide at a point difficult in his early life. Number 5. His connection with Starfleet resulted in his choice to enter Starfleet Academy. Upon applying for admittance to the Academy, Data met with some resistance from Bruce Maddox, who, desiring the opportunity to avail his cybernetic research interests, became, as Data put it, the only member of the evaluation committee to oppose Data's entrance on the grounds that he was not a sentient being. Eventually, Data was admitted to the Academy in 2341 and spent 4 years there. During his time at Starfleet Academy, Data did extremely well scholastically, but his lack of understanding often created social obstacles for him. He fell victim to several practical jokes and had difficulty with social gatherings. In 2345, Data graduated with honors in exobiology and probability mechanics. Number 6. One of Data's first assignments after he graduated Starfleet Academy was aboard the USS Triste. He spent 3 years as an ensign and 12 as a lieutenant before being promoted to lieutenant commander in 2360. In 2364, he was assigned to the USS Enterprise as its second officer. By 2365, he had earned the Starfleet Command Decoration for Gallantry, Medal of Honor with Clusters, Legion of Honor, and the Star Cross. These were considered by Wesley Crusher to be some of the highest awards in Starfleet. By early 2368, Data had encountered 1,754 non-human races during his tenure with Starfleet. Number 7. Data served as operations officer and second officer on board the USS Enterprise D from 2364 until the vessel's destruction in 2371. Since he did not require sleep, he usually stood night watch on the bridge. His quarters were located on Deck 2, room 3653. He frequently participated in away missions undertaken by the crew, as was indicated by standard procedure for the second officer of a Federation starship. Number 8. Data transferred to the new USS Enterprise E in 2372, along with the most of the senior staff of the Enterprise D. They took part in missions like the Battle of Sector 001 in the Baku incident. Number 9. By 2379, Data was expected to succeed Commander Riker as first officer, following Riker's promotion to captain of the USS Titan. However, while in the Scimitar, Data utilized a prototype emergency transport unit concealed in his forearm to return Picard to the Enterprise. With the Thalaron radiation weapon seconds away from firing, Data used his phaser to destroy it, which resulted in the complete destruction of the Scimitar and Data as well. Number 10. Data's mass was approximately 100 kilograms. Data's upper spinal support was a polyalloy designed to withstand extreme stress. For instance, Data once leaped into a deep underground cave and was able to safely fall down 11.75 meters to the bottom without damaging himself. Data was built with an ultimate storage capacity of 800 quadrillion bits, 100 petabytes, and a total linear computational speed rated at 60 trillion operations per second. However, he later augmented his computational speed by converting his interleaved sequencer to an asynchronous mode of operation, removing the performance constraint created by virtue of having space between his positronic links. His computational speed became virtually instantaneous after this modification. His physical and mental capabilities were far superior to that of virtually any organic or cybernetic humanoid, including Klingons, humans, and even Borg drones. Data was either unaffected by or highly resistant to conditions such as disease, radiation, oxygen deprivation, mind control, and chemical imbalances, which were crucial to the survival of the ship on numerous occasions. However, he was apparently more vulnerable than either humans or Klingons to atmospheric conditions that involved the high presence of high concentrations of ions. I do hope you like this video on Data. He was my favorite character on TNG growing up. So what do you think about Data? Let me know in the comments. Also, consider subscribing to the channel and like the video. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Today's 10 Interesting Facts is about Commander William Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation. He was a good first officer for Captain Picard and the Enterprise. So, let's get into it. Number 1. A descendant of Yankee forebears, William Thomas Riker was born in 2335 to Kyle and Betty Riker in Alaska on Earth. His distant ancestors included Thaddeus Riker, a Union Army colonel who fought during the American Civil War of the mid-19th century, and a particularly rugged great-grandfather of note. Number 2. Betty died when Will was only 2 years old, leaving his father to raise him alone. The Rikers remained in Alaska at Betty's wish. The only thing which kept Kyle going was Will, but he did not feel as if others could discuss the situation with him, even when Will was older. The memories of Betty's presence at their Alaska home were also painful for both. This initial trauma created a rift between the two Rikers, which lasted 30 years. When Will first started school at the age of 5, he told all his new friends that his mother was still alive. Eventually, he told the story so often that he began to believe the lie. Soon, his teacher learned of this problem, and both she and Kyle had to talk with Will and make him realize that his mother was dead and was not coming back. Will cried the entire night following, but later realized it was an important step in accepting his mother's death. However, Will's relationship with Kyle continued to deteriorate into his early teens. He was often left to care for himself, learning such skills as cooking. Number 3. Will was never able to concentrate much on subjects, such as math, as he constantly daydreamed about starships. In 2344, Will and his father went on a fishing trip. Will was able to hook a large fish, but Kyle insisted on reeling the fish in. This incident bothered Will for many years. He also practiced jiu-jitsu with his father. By 2347, when Will was 12, Kyle admitted that his son's skills at the sport were superior. Will did not know that the only reason why he kept losing was because his father used illegal moves. Number 4. Will entered Starfleet Academy in 2354. Paul Rice was at the Academy at the same time, and they were friends. Riker's superintendent was Vulcan, who had taken the time to memorize the personnel files of each and every cadet. During his first year, Riker felt at odds with everyone, as if the world was against him. At one point in the Academy, Riker calculated a sensory blind spot on a Tholian vessel and hid within it during a battle simulation. Upon graduation in 2357, Riker was ranked 8th in his class. He set lofty goals for himself and hoped to reach captain before 35 years of age. Riker's Starfleet serial number was SC-231-427. Number 5. 7 months after graduation, Ensign William Riker's first posting was the USS Pegasus, under the command of Eric Pressman. He was the ship's con officer, and his youthful appearance earned him the nickname Ensign Babyface, coined by fellow crew member Lieutenant Boylan. Phil Wallace was another of Riker's friends aboard the Pegasus. Fresh from the Academy, Riker was still somewhat serious about his work. Loyalty and obedience to his commanding officer were top priorities, with his ears still ringing from words like duty and honor. This attitude caused him to behave against the principles of the Treaty of Alderaan during a crisis on board the ship. Although Pressman commended Riker for his unquestioning loyalty, over the years Riker began to have doubts about whether he had made the right decision. Number 6. Following the Pegasus incident, Riker was stationed on Beta Z. While there, he met Deanna Troi. The two began a relationship which lasted several years. By 2361, Riker was promoted to lieutenant and served in the operations division aboard the USS Potemkin. Aboard the Potemkin, he developed a tactic which involved using a planet's magnetic pole and shutting down all ship's systems to confuse an enemy vessel's sensors. He also took up poker so he could integrate himself with the senior officers in their games. Fortunately, they realized he was young and inexperienced and decided not to hold it against him. Later, Riker received a promotion to lieutenant commander for exceptional valor during a mission. He was quickly posted to the USS Hood as first officer. Number 7. Riker's commanding officer on the Hood was Captain Robert DeSoto. His service aboard the ship was exemplary, despite an incident where Riker, risking a court-martial, refused to allow Captain DeSoto to transport to a hostile planet situation on Altar 3. Riker was offered his first command, that of the ill-fated USS Drake in 2364. However, he turned that down for a far more enticing offer. Number 8. William Riker was promoted to commander and first officer of the newly launched USS Enterprise D in 2364. He was ferried to the planet Deneb 4 by the Hood and met the Enterprise at the planet. The ship had undergone a saucer separation after being threatened by the entity known as Q. Riker reported aboard the Starve Drive section and was briefed about the current situation, and was ordered to perform a difficult and unusual manual docking with the saucer module, which he conducted very well. Riker was an accomplished tactician, inventing several strategies while serving aboard various starships. He apparently acquired a reputation for unorthodox solutions, as Enterprise's second officer Data estimated he only used traditional tactics 21% of the time. Number 9. Riker transferred to the new USS Enterprise E in 2372, along with most of the senior staff of the Enterprise D. In 2373, the Enterprise took part in the Battle of Sector 001 against Starfleet orders. Thanks to the ship's intervention, the Borg cube was destroyed, but not before it launched a sphere which generated a temporal vortex and traveled to the year 2063. The Enterprise pursued and destroyed the sphere before it could prevent the first flight of Zefram Cochrane aboard the Phoenix warp ship. The Phoenix was damaged during the attack, and several Enterprise E crew members assisted Cochrane in repairs. Riker also needed to convince Cochrane of the importance of his first warp flight, as Cochrane considered canceling it following the Borg attack. Riker, along with Geordi La Forge, was present on board the Phoenix for Cochrane's historic flight. Number 10. By 2379, Riker decided to accept promotion to captain of the USS Titan, assuming command of the ship that year. Troi also transferred to the Titan. Following Riker's assuming command of the Titan, they were dispatched to the Romulan Neutral Zone to serve as command ship for a diplomatic task force. Of course, there's a lot more we could talk about when it comes to Riker. There's a lot of information. Did you like Riker? And do you think he should have accepted promotion sooner? Let me know your thoughts. Take care and have a great day. Good day. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to go through 10 interesting facts on Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek: The Next Generation. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel to help it grow. Now, let's get into this. Jean-Luc Picard was born to Maurice and Yvette Picard in Le Bar, France, on 13th of July, 2305, and as a child, he dreamed of joining Starfleet. Number 2. He and the rest of his family speak English with English accents, the French language having been obscure by the 24th century. Picard also has a number of British habits, including the regular consumption of Earl Grey tea and a fondness for Shakespeare, which he performs in holodeck simulations. Riding horses with English tact, and a knowledge of British songs with Royal Navy associations as A British Tar and A Heart of Oak. The young Picard failed his first Starfleet Academy entrance exam, and upon admission in 2323, met with numerous ethical and scholastic difficulties during his cadet career, but went on to flourish, developing a long passion for archaeology, and he became the first freshman to win the Academy Marathon. Number 4. At the Academy, Picard developed an interest in archaeology. His professor, Richard Galen, encouraged him to continue in this field, but Picard ultimately refused his offer of becoming an archaeologist. He would nevertheless keep his interest in the subject, and became to be considered quite knowledgeable in the field. Shortly after graduation, in 2327, Ensign Picard's promising career nearly ended abruptly when he was on shore leave at Farspace Starbase Earhart. During a bar brawl over a rigged game of Donjot, he was stabbed through the heart by a Noxican and had to undergo emergency surgery to replace his heart. He later related to Wesley Crusher that he laughed after looking down to see the knife protruding from his chest. This event helped him realize how fragile life could be, and thus made him more willing to take risks and make his mark in the universe, which he only realized when Q proposed him to change this event in 2369. Number 6. As an ensign, Picard was posted to the USS Reliant, where he served with Lieutenant Nakamura. Also, while an ensign, Picard was capable of detecting by ear variations in a ship's torque sensors, and as such, he was capable of hearing a 3-micron misalignment. Number 7. Picard demonstrated command abilities early in his career, in particular when he led an away team on Milica 3 to save an ambassador. This incident would later be mentioned by Q as one of the crucial events forming Picard's personality. Number 8. As a young lieutenant, Picard attended the wedding of Sarek's son, where he briefly met Sarek and Spock for the first and only time before 2360s. Number 9. Picard was assigned as a helmsman aboard the USS Stargazer. In 2333, Picard assumed command of the vessel when the captain was killed on the bridge. Starfleet awarded Picard a promotion to the post of captain, making him one of the youngest Starfleet officers ever to attain the position. Picard remained in command of the Stargazer for 22 years. Number 10. In 2364, Picard was assigned command of the newly commissioned Galaxy-class starship USS Enterprise D. He commanded the flagship for 7 years, participating in many important missions. Picard handpicked most of his senior staff, such as 2 young officers, who impressed him enough upon first meeting Geordi La Forge once piloted Picard's inspection tour shuttle and stayed up all night to refit the engine part because Picard had made a passing comment on, and Picard witnessed Tasha Yar risk her life to save colonists in a minefield. He had also picked William T. Riker as his first officer and promoted him to commander sight unseen, impressed by the young officer's record of independence. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to leave a comment and a like on the video. Let me know how I'm doing. Take care and have a great day. Good day, everyone. Today's 10 interesting facts is on one of the most famous starships from Star Trek, the Enterprise, NCC 1701D. This ship was in the Star Trek series The Next Generation for all 7 seasons and 1 movie. So now, let's get into it. Number 1. During its career, the Enterprise served as the Federation flagship and was in service from 2363 to 2371. The Enterprise was built at Utopia Planitia Fleet Yards, orbiting Mars in the Sol system. The construction was a massive undertaking involving thousands of people. Construction was supervised by Commander Quinteros. Dr. Leah Brahms was responsible for much of the Enterprise's warp propulsion system's design. Some of the Enterprise's components were derived from technology originally developed on the USS Pegasus. On Stardate 40759.5 in the year 2363, the Enterprise was launched from Mars. On Stardate 41025.5, the Enterprise was commissioned. Final systems completion and shakedown was conducted at Earth Station McKinley. Captain Jean-Luc Picard took command of the ship on Stardate 41148 at the order of Rear Admiral Nora Satie. Number 2. With a total of 42 decks, the USS Enterprise D was twice the length and had 8 times the interior space of the Constitution-class ships of over a century earlier. It carried a combined crew and passenger load of 1,014. Number 3. The bridge, captain's ready room, and conference lounge were on Deck 1 and were protected by redundant safety interlocks to prevent environmental systems failure. The main shuttle bay was on Deck 4, supported by several cargo bays on Deck 4 and Deck 18. 2 additional shuttle bays were found on Deck 13. Number 4. Deck 8 of the ship was an unfinished multi-purpose deck. Additional workspaces were set there when needed. It also contained the officers' quarters, some guest quarters, and the battle bridge. Deck 12 contained sick bay and the gymnasium, while main engineering was located on Deck 36. Engineering took up 12 decks of the secondary hull, with the antimatter storage pods housed on Deck 42. There was also a science station on Deck 15. Number 5. The primary docking ports were located on either side of the torpedo launcher on Deck 25. The nacelle control room was also on that deck. It also had 20 transporter rooms, with at least 1 on Deck 6. Number 6. The Enterprise had a maximum sustainable speed of warp 9.6 for 12 hours. The warp core could generate a tremendous amount of energy at once if needed. The only device on the ship capable of channeling such energy all at once at controlled frequencies was the main deflector dish. There were some 4,000 power systems in all on board the ship. Number 7. The armaments of the Enterprise D included 12 phaser arrays, 2 torpedo launchers, a supply of 250 photon torpedoes, and hundreds of antimatter mines. The ship was protected by a high-capacity shield grid that could operate on multiple frequencies. When the ship was destroyed in 2371, the shield frequency was at 257.1 megahertz. Number 8. The bulk of the people on board the Enterprise could be evacuated within 4 minutes. This was executed at Starbase 74 at 2364. During emergency situations, certain large but protected areas of the ship were designated emergency shelters, including 10 forward. Collectively, they could hold all the ship's crew and were designed so that the crew could reach one of the areas quickly. In 2367, while caught in the Tychon Rift, the crew was ordered to these areas in order to get extra power from life support in non-sheltered areas. Number 9. In 2367, an average day aboard the ship recorded by Lieutenant Commander Data included 4 birthdays, 2 personal transfers, 2 chess tournaments, a secondary school play, 4 promotions, and at least 1 birth. The Enterprise normally ran on 3 duty shifts. Increasing to 4 duty shifts caused many personnel scheduling problems, as observed when Captain Jellicoe ordered a change during his tenure in 2369. Crew members of ensign rank were required to share crew quarters, but were allowed their own quarters upon promotion to lieutenant junior grade. Families often shared quarters. 10 forward, located at the extreme forward of Deck 10 in the saucer section, was the center of the ship's social activity. Nearly everyone on board passed through the lounge at one time or another. Holodecks, located on Deck 10 and 12, also provided entertainment for the crew. Number 10. An engagement with the renegade Klingon bird of prey commanded by the Duras sisters in 2371 resulted in extensive damage to the Enterprise. The ship's magnetic interlocks were ruptured, and best efforts could be made to repair them. A coolant leak began, leading to an unavoidable warp core breach. Faced with this scenario, Commander Riker ordered the evacuation of the crew from the secondary hull to the saucer section. Once the evacuation was completed, the saucer could separate and get to a safe distance before the star drive section was destroyed by the core breach. La Forge and Dr. Crusher oversaw the evacuation of the respective departments and completed with a minute to spare. The saucer's impulse engines were engaged as soon as it cleared the secondary hull, but the saucer was unable to get to a safe distance before the core breach. The explosion produced an ion shockwave that disabled the entire saucer section and propelled the saucer into a degrading orbit of Veridian 3, forcing the saucer section into the planet's atmosphere. With the saucer hurtling towards the surface of the planet, Data managed to reroute auxiliary systems to the lateral thrusters, thereby restore thruster control to level out the descent. Moments later, the saucer crash-landed into a jungle on the planet's surface, flattening many trees as it came to rest. Owing to a relatively safe landing, the Enterprise's casualties were minimal. Unfortunately, the severe damage sustained by the primary hull in the battle and subsequent crash landing rendered the ship unsalvageable. The ship's crew was rescued by 3 Starfleet vessels. I do hope you liked today's video. What memory do you have of the Enterprise D? Let me know in the comments. And please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. Take care and have a great day.